Alright, hello guys, how's it going? In today's video, we are once more talking about Tropical Storms Marco and Tropical Storm Lara. Now, before I get started with this video, though, I would ask that you do subscribe if you do like weather-related content, and also make sure to share this video with your friends, family, and social media. Now, I'd also ask that you check out our very exciting Patreon page in the description and the pinned comment down below. That's also where you can find our very exciting Discord server and Facebook groups in the same location. Now for today's comment of the day, since it seems like these two storms will make landfall in very similar locations, I want to know, how far apart do you think we will see landfall from both of our individual storms? Let me know in the comments down below, let me know why as well, and I'll be picking one of those for tomorrow's video. Now let's get into this video, and as you can see, we are taking a look at the 5-day graphical tropical weather outlook, and you can see we have Tropical Storm Lara there over the Dominican Republic and Haiti, where it actually is not breaking up as much as we anticipated. And then we also have Tropical Storm Marco there to the north of the Yucatan Peninsula. Both of them have Louisiana in their sights, and it's going to be really important that we pay attention to the potential impacts from these two storms. Now let's go ahead and take a look at our cone forecast from the National Weather Service here for Tropical Storm Marco. As you can see, we expect this one to become a hurricane very soon, and what we're going to see is it's going to move generally northward as a hurricane and come onshore to Louisiana there, where it'll weaken obviously to a tropical storm and then a tropical depression. But we do have hurricane warnings up for those red region. The pink regions there have hurricane watches. Then we have tropical storm warning there in that blue area and a tropical storm watch there in that yellow area for southern Alabama. Now what we're going to do is we're going to move on and we're going to take a look at the same thing for Tropical Storm Lara. Now as you can see, we have a tropical storm warning there for Cuba, Dominican Republic, Haiti, and portions of the Bahamas as well. We also have tropical storm watches there for the very western tip of Cuba and also a lot of the Bahamas and southern Florida there, including the Florida Keys. We do anticipate that this one will become a hurricane as well after it is offshore of Cuba. It should intensify further, and by about 2 a.m. on Wednesday, we will see this one reach hurricane status potentially. Now, the one thing I want to mention is we are expecting the first one, Tropical Storm Marco, to reach Louisiana at about 1 p.m. on Monday. It should be making landfall. Now, Tropical Storm Lara is going to be making landfall overnight Wednesday night into Thursday, potentially in Louisiana as well. So you're going to have about 1 day to recover from our first tropical storm before we have our next one coming on shore as a hurricane. Marco, again, as well, could potentially be a hurricane at landfall as well. All right, so that's very important. Always be sure to seek your official guidance from the National Hurricane Center and the National Weather Service. They will be updating warnings and their expected impacts continuously throughout the days up until these storms, so always be sure to seek official guidance from them. What we're going to do is we're going to move on and we're going to take a look at our satellite imagery for both of these storms individually, as well as our spaghetti models and our intensity guidance. All right, now here is our Tropical Storm Marco, and look, this one actually has a very intense look to it. We see those very tall clouds. This one looks like it is about to be a hurricane, especially when we see those two split areas of very tall clouds. That's usually a good sign that this one is a stronger tropical storm. I think we will see a hurricane within the next 12 hours here from Tropical Storm Marco and what I think will eventually be Hurricane Marco. And here's your spaghetti model guidance for this one. As you can see, there is actually a pretty wide area of where these models think this one can go, but really the eastern coast of Louisiana seems to be the most popular option amongst these models. Within the next 48 hours, we will likely see landfall there in eastern Louisiana. It could stay just offshore of Louisiana and kind of skirt along the coast. That would be kind of a worst case scenario because the storm would not lose its intensity, but we would still see impacts for a much wider area. So that's going to play a very crucial role in what this storm does. Let's look at that intensity guidance, and as you can see, they do expect that over the next 36 hours, it will become a hurricane. These models say about a 50% chance. I think about a 75% chance due to how intense it looks on satellite imagery. The models this short term can be a little funky, so I think there's a little bit of a more elevated chance of hurricane status than the models are thinking. But as you can see, they're going to drop off almost immediately once we see the storm come on shore at about hours 48, which is to be expected. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to move on. We're going to take a look at the same things for Tropical Storm Lara, satellite imagery, spaghetti models, intensity guidance, and then we're going to start talking about the impacts we could feel from this one according to the National Weather Service. Now, for Tropical Storm Lara, here's the thing. It's over Dominican Republic and Haiti, but it's just to the south. I think the low pressure center is actually to the south of these islands, and that's going to help this storm remain intense. And actually, considering it just moved over those tall mountains, this storm looks very intense in my opinion. I think Laura also looks like she could be nearly a hurricane as well. A very good sign of that is the very aesthetic look. We see a very aesthetic look here from Laura. Very even, very round, circular shape there. I think this one is going to be a hurricane as well, maybe even sooner than we anticipate. Because as of right now, Laura is doing a very nice job at withstanding those high mountains, though she still has to move over Cuba over the next 24 to 48 hours. So that's going to really tell a lot about what this storm can do. Now, quickly to take a look at our spaghetti model guidance here, there's actually a pretty thin cone with this one as of right now. And they have the low pressure center a lot further north than I think it really is. But I do think it's going to move directly over Cuba. And then in about 48 hours, it'll be past Cuba and it will be in open water for about, I would say, about 36 hours it'll have at least over water until it reaches likely Louisiana. And yesterday the models were trending it also in eastern Louisiana track for this one. Now they're kind of trending at a western Louisiana, but I still think it's very possible we see this one come on shore pretty much at the same exact location, which would be absolutely the worst case scenario, obviously. Let's go ahead and take a look at that intensity guidance from the models here. And as you can see, it shows a more weaker to moderate tropical storm. Again, I think we're a lot closer to those more strong tropical storm statuses. Just because of how great it looks on satellite, I have to imagine it's a stronger tropical storm. And as you can see, again, at about hours 48 is when it will be back over warmer waters and open water after Cuba. And you can see all of the models have it intensifying afterwards, after that point. Pretty much most of these, if not all of these, have it reaching hurricane status, and then potentially even category 2 or 3. Yesterday, we saw a very unsettling trend at a potential for category 3, 4, 5 storm. And I do not think that's likely at all. I think category 1 is very likely at this point, but category 2 is when you start to see a lot more unlikely, and then category 3, I would say only about a 10% or lower of category 3 or above status. So I think that category 1 or 2 status seems to be the peak for this storm. Fortunately for sure. And then it drops off in intensity after landfall, obviously. Now what we're going to do is we're going to move on and we're going to take a look at the impacts that we could see from these 2 tropical storms for the United States and even the islands as well. All right, so first things first, this is our probability of tropical storm force winds. All you need to know is the purples are 90% plus. And as you can see, for Dominican Republic and Haiti, we have 90% plus, obviously, because the tropical storm is located there right now. And then we see a 50 to 60% chance for Cuba there. And we already see a 70 to 90% chance there for Louisiana. Maybe even some purples coming on shore indicating 90% plus. That's for Marco. And we haven't seen those probabilities extended for Laura, I don't think yet, for Louisiana, but it is likely that both of them will bring tropical storm force winds on shore. Now, here's a very, very useful tool here. This is our earliest reasonable arrival time of tropical storm force winds for Tropical Storm Marco, first things first. And as you can see, sometime between 2 a.m. and 8 a.m. on Monday is when we're going to start seeing tropical storm winds move on shore to Louisiana from Tropical Storm Marco. This is obviously very useful because we can tell the time frame that we're looking at until we see those winds start to move on shore to the States. Now here is for Laura, and as you can see, at about 8 p.m. on Tuesday until about 8 a.m. on Wednesday is when we're going to really start to see those tropical storm force winds move on shore to Louisiana. But as you can see, the cone here is very wide. Texas is possible, Mississippi is possible, Alabama is possible. We still have a long way out until Laura kind of reaches the United States, actually. So a lot can change here. So right now, we're going to take a look at the estimated storm surge from the National Hurricane Center. And the one thing you're going to want to note is this is only for Tropical Storm Marco. This is not including the storm surge we're expecting for Tropical Storm Laura, but later on, there will be access to that. Again, always be sure to seek official guidance from the National Hurricane Center and the National Weather Service, considering that this is a potentially life-threatening event. All right, now we are expecting generally 2 to 4 feet of storm surge possible throughout all of these red regions. But as you can see, for some of those regions there near eastern Louisiana and possibly even coastal Mississippi, and then obviously coming into a lot of the more swampy regions in there for Louisiana, we're expecting the potential for 4 to 6 feet of storm surge for a lot of those regions just nearby where we see the storm come on shore. So generally 4 to 6. But all of these red regions are expecting at least 2 to 4 feet of storm surge. All right, these numbers are going to be updated. You can always seek guidance on this from the National Hurricane Center, and I highly recommend you do so as well. Now, here's your estimated rainfall over the next 7 days. This should include both of our storms here. Anywhere in the blues, greens, grays, anything basically under the pink shades, we're expecting under an inch of rain. Now, for the pinks and purples, we're expecting 1 to 2 inches of rain. The reds, 2 to 4 inches of rain. And then the golds, that's where we're expecting 4 to anything amount of rain. And in those darker shades there for eastern Louisiana and maybe even coastal Mississippi, we're expecting probably closer to 8 to 10 inches of rain to be possible throughout those regions, which could cause some moderate to major flooding issues. And really what makes these storms so major and the impact so major is the fact that we're going to see one, and then we have 1 day of calm, and then another hurricane coming on shore. That's what makes the potential for major impacts basically significant. Now, let's look at our cone forecast here from direct weather for both of these storms. Now, Tropical Storm Lara, again, expected to move onshore to Cuba, track over Cuba, and then open waters for about 2.5, 3 days, and then potentially hit Louisiana, maybe Mississippi or Texas, but I expect a Louisiana landfall with this one as well. Let's look at our Tropical Storm Marco forecast, and it's over open water, is expected to become a hurricane and should move onshore to eastern Louisiana, though there is that slim chance, again, that it kind of skirts along the coast and heads towards Texas. Either way, whether it's onshore or offshore, it is going to curve back westward and head towards Texas, which should bring some rainfall throughout this entire cone, if not a more extended range. Now, for today's comment of the day, I asked you guys, which of these two storms do you think will be more impactful? And Xavier O'Leary said, I think Lara, and I do think Lara as well, should be the more impactful of the two. And here's the reason why. That first storm is going to come through, and then we're going to see the second one come through with the already soaked grounds, already impacted regions. I think that's going to make the second one even more impactful than the first. Anyway, for today's patron highlight of the day, I want to thank all of you for supporting the channel, but especially our diamond patrons, Madbirds, Mark J, and then our platinum patron, Donna Carnes. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this video. Again, be sure to share this video with your friends, family, and social media. Also, I highly recommend you seek official guidance from the National Hurricane Center and the National Weather Service as always. I'll see you guys in the next video.